Android-powered smart speaker and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. This is the sort of stuff that is routine on college campuses now. This comes to us from Arizona State University. Been trying to get to it all week. This seems like an appropriate time to get it, as we're about to talk about free speech rankings at America's colleges and universities. Two dudes in the multicultural space at Arizona State University, two white dudes, and they were creating their presence and I think their republicanism, creating a hostile environment for some of the ladies of color in that multicultural space.
What did I do wrong?
You have a better... You're offensive. Police lives matter?
Oh, that's
right.
We're just trying to do school.
What?
You guys have the same sticker of the other.
But this is our space.
We've got a Police Lives Matter sticker and we're getting kicked out. Can't do school.
Oh my God.
You just said we have to leave.
No, I said... You're making the space uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable.
But you're white. Do you understand what a multicultural space? It means you're not being centered.
White's not a culture?
No, it's not a culture. White is not a culture. Say it again to the camera. You think whiteness is a culture?
This is insane.
So anyways, this is the violence that ASU does, and this is the type of people that they protect. Okay, this white man thinks he can take up our space, and this is why we need a multicultural space, because they think they can get away with it.
I'm going to sit here the whole time, and you can find somebody to kick me out.
That's cool. We will.
Yeah, of course they will. They're the mob. Arizona State undergrad was not an Arizona State undergrad as well. That woman screeching at them for having a Police Lives Matter sticker on his computer. They were otherwise minding their own business, keeping to themselves in this public space. But anyway, on campus, her actual name is Sarah Tacola.
And who is she?
She's a PhD student in sustainability at ASU. It's becoming very marketable. She's also a Ford Foundation fellow.
Oh.
Yeah. Course. So she's a political activist being funded by the Ford Foundation to get her PhD and, harass people that have different views than her, which is, again, par for the course at America's colleges and universities, with very few exceptions. I think even fewer than are enshrined in this recent ranking of free speech on campus. For more on this, pleased to be joined by Nathan Harden. He's the editor of RealClearEducation.com, who, along with FIRE, Foundation for Individual Rights and Education, and College Pulse, put together this ranking. Nathan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Great to be here.
So, these college rankings that come out, I know the Wall Street Journal just published one, U.S. News and World Report. The way that they rank them, it's all just bull jive, and it's marketing, and it's sort of status mongering with people who come from the same universe. I almost look at those the top 20 best colleges and universities in the country, starting with Harvard. My alma mater, Northwestern, is in the top 10. I look at them and I say, those are the 20 colleges I would never send my kids. So these rankings that parents put so much emphasis on, I think we need to disabuse them of that. I know it confers status because you can point to a news article, but I just think these rankings sometimes really belie what's happening on the campus. And I'm looking at your ranking, and I just want to start being real controversial here. University of Chicago is number 2.
How is that possible?
I don't get it. So the Zimmer statement about free speech on campus and blah, 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 that's all well and good, the University of Chicago free speech statement. But I know for certain, we're right here, the University of Chicago's day-to-day life does not reflect the values of that statement. So how does that come in at number 2?
Well, I think it's important to realize that our rankings don't indicate that there's no problems in free speech, right? And even in the top-ranked schools, this is about grading on a curve.
Yeah.
So you've all been there, and if you look at the ranking, it's based on what students are actually telling us about their school. So we surveyed over 37,000 students across the country at more than 150 colleges and universities. And we used their responses to questions like, how tolerant are you to have conversations about difficult topics like abortion or affirmative action? How supportive do you feel your administration is on free speech? How willing are you to, tolerate a guest speaker who's either liberal or conservative? And we use all those responses to create a number score that would be between 0 and 100. But even the top-ranked schools only scored about 70 out of 100, which is maybe a low D, barely passing grade. I don't want people to think that there's no problems anywhere. It's really about who's doing a little better than some of the others.
No, that's fair, and that's a really good point. It's useful added context. But I mean, I just want to because you're basically this is a ranking of which is the most benevolent of the dictators. That's sort of how I read it, because I mean, honestly, on the list, I mean, in the top 50 are colleges like Vassar and Oberlin. And I mean, so these students, I think, part of this, it would be interesting too, and I'm not giving you a homework assignment, but it would be interesting to bump up the student responses to the professors' responses. And both cohorts may be lying to you because they know what the answer's supposed to be.
Right.
And then there's what they actually do in daily living on campus.
Well, we saw some pretty startling statistics that came out of this year's rankings that people really, something to chew on. And, 40% of students told us that they were comfortable disagreeing with a professor, but that's down 5 percentage points just from last year's surveys. And that means 60% weren't comfortable disagreeing with a professor. And 80% of students told us that they're self-censoring, meaning they're not speaking up for one reason or another in the classroom. But probably the most startling of all this year, this is what kind of gut punched me, almost 1 in 4 students said that it's acceptable to use violence to stop campus speech nationwide.
Right.
And that's as high as 1 in 3 at some of the more elite colleges. So here's the paradox we have. I think even in the clip you played, somebody said something about words are violent.
Yeah, violence. Right. Yeah.
So, the more hypersensitivity students have about themselves, the more sort of callous they are toward others. That's the paradox. And we're talking about words are violence, but people are actually more willing to use physical violence, apparently, at the same time.
Well, what about
there's a real cultural problem here.
Yeah, sounds like. What about tolerance for conservative speakers?
Well, one of the things people can do, and we hope parents and students will use this as part of their process of looking at schools when they're choosing a school, or they want to see what's going on at their alma mater, you can go in and, for instance, click on the University of Chicago at RealClearEducation.com. You can find the rankings there. And it'll actually tell you how tolerant are students on average toward liberal speakers and how tolerant are they toward conservative speakers. As you might imagine, we found a little more tolerance for liberal speakers than conservatives. But relative to other schools, conservatives actually felt that they were better able to speak up in class, and there was more of an environment open to constructive disagreement at the University of Chicago than almost every other school on our rankings. So that just tells you, there are problems everywhere, but there are real distinctions coming from students themselves and how willing they are to express themselves on campus and how free they feel to do that.
Number 3 on the list, so it's Claremont McKenna, which has had its share of problems. University of Chicago, we've tackled. Number 3 is Hillsdale College, which I consider one of the bastions of enlightenment that are left, one of the few bastions of enlightenment that are left. And you've got them ranked number 3 on the free speech index, but you've got a warning next to their ranking. What does that mean?
That has to do with the written speech codes. So the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, which is our partner in producing these rankings, they actually have, teams of attorneys that pore over the student manuals and the official speech policies on every school. So on a few schools, they actually don't make an explicit guarantee of free speech. And Hillsdale is one of those, although numerically they're ranked students are telling us that the atmosphere is really good there compared to most other schools. But we're, issuing these speech code, information alongside that so people can see what the actual policies are. You look at this holistically and you think that, we see episodes like the one you played at Arizona State, and you wonder, is this problem everywhere? Is it the same everywhere? And how do you know, how bad this problem is at your favorite school? And we wanted to, for the first time, to put some data around this question. People look at all these other college rankings, and it's really about prestige, or it's about exclusivity. But what about the educational experience that you're actually going to get there? I mean, are you going to spend $200,000 on a 4-year degree and not even feel free to speak up in class? That sounds preposterous, but that's the experience many students are actually getting in classrooms these days.
Yeah, and I get, one ranking is not the end all be all, but I do appreciate the categories you tried to measure. But I note there too, just looking at this, again, other schools that I would say are the last bastions of Western civilization, in addition to Hillsdale, would be like University of Dallas, Grove City. I don't see those schools on this list. How come?
Well, we couldn't survey every school in the country,
all right.
just
Fair
due to
enough.
financial limitations. So we did 50 last year. That was the inaugural year of these rankings, and we expanded that to 150 this year. And it's by far the largest survey of students on the topic of free speech that's ever been conducted, at over 37,000 students. And the cost and just the logistical task of doing that is monumental. So we would love to have all 500 or 600 colleges on here, and maybe we'll work closer to that as we repeat these rankings year over year. But but we really want this to be hopefully a few colleges that are on your list. If you're a young student or a parent looking at schools, you're going to probably find some of them here, and we want to give people that information to actually see. What kind of educational experience can I expect there? If you're a conservative student, you might be going to a more of a liberal institution. Is this going to be a place where my views are going to be, at least welcomed as part of the debate?
Yeah, well, I'm reading. My favorite part of this is the student voices. I'm looking at Purdue right now, which ranked number 6. This is somebody from class of 2024. I would classify myself as a Republican, and I do not feel like I can speak my mind here. Like, oh, that's great.
Right. Well, that's 6th on the list. Compare that to U of I, which is U of I is 87th on the list, behind
what?
Berkeley.
Oh, really?
I mean, so I know this is just the student's perspective, but it is interesting. The one thing I would say though too about like some of these other colleges that are known to be more rooted in the founding principles of the nation and sort of the ideas that spring from those founding principles, like free speech and robust debate and so forth. I mean, it's almost like they should be included because you need to get away from some of the state schools and the schools that have status because they're on Wall Street Journal list or U.S. News and World Report list. And did you know about University of Dallas? Did you know about Hillsdale? Did you know about Grove City and others too? It just seems to me like you want to include that cohort that do, at least in academic circles, are sort of known to be of this category and see how they stack up with what students say about these other universities.
Yeah, again, obviously it's not an exhaustive list, but it's giving students and parents information in real data behind this issue in a way that they haven't before. And so, again, if people if listeners want to come to Real Clear Education, the rankings are right there. We're very excited to be able to present this kind of information for to just really put some bones on this issue, because we've been talking about free speech on campus, for 15 or 20 years as a pretty hot topic, and the problem's really getting worse. We feel like this is finally a way to bring some accountability by putting some numbers on this issue.
Now,
we hope that school administrators will look at it too and see where they need to make some improvement.
You can hope. It's good, and it's good that it's laid out so you can understand what is being measured. I was talking to a friend who's a biomedical engineering professor out east, and we were talking about these rankings over the weekend, and he's like, "Let me give you an example of some of these rankings." He taught at medical school as well. And he's like, when the ranking came out, top medical schools, and then they have categorizations. And it used to be called the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago. Now it's called the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. But in the their rheumatology category, best rheumatology programs, Rehab Institute of Chicago at the time was ranked number 2 in the nation. They didn't have a rheumatology program. But they had a great reputation, right? And so we don't need to do any due diligence in all these categories. We know what the best schools are. We probably went to them, and so we're just going to put those schools on the list in perpetuity, regardless of what the actual offerings are, performances, culture is, and so forth. So this is why you should always be skeptical, and this is why I appreciate at least you guys show your work so people can make that judgment.
That's right. The more information we can actually put out about this, I feel like the better chance that students and parents are going to be informed, that schools can be motivated to make changes. We occasionally will get emails from universities asking, why did we rank here, or why did we get flagged for this or that? And that's an opportunity for them to improve. And everybody's for free speech, right? If you ask them,
right.
Liberal, conservative, we're all for free speech. But when it comes down to what that actually looks like in the classroom, we live in a culture right now where whatever you put on social media, whatever you say here or there, it's like it can and will be used against you in the court of public opinion. So we want to counteract that trend by really, saying that the university needs to be the one place where open debate and healthy disagreement can be fostered, nurtured, and encouraged. That's not happening everywhere, and that needs to change.
Nathan Harden, editor of Real Clear Education, RealClearEducation.com. Check out their rankings, free speech, college free speech rankings 2021. Nathan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And thank you. And he joined us on our Turnkey.pro answer line.
It's what Chicago is talking about. It's Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy on AM 560. The Answer.
Are you aware that AmericanEagle.com has been designing websites